with this idea of distinctiveness in front of us, let me pose this next question. How do you see the church, meaning the universal body of Christ, not just the local churches, moving towards this goal of valuing our distinctiveness, yet acting as one body? How do you see the church actually moving towards that goal? And again, anyone can start.
I had somebody the other day say to me that the body of Christ is like a box of parts. You know, when you put together a piece of furniture from IKEA, it's a bunch of different parts, and sometimes those parts are even sealed in different little bags, and all those parts are unique and different. If all the parts were the same, then you would have no piece of furniture to sit on. They have to be different because it's actually their distinction, their differences that link together to make the thing work. Unity is not uniformity. And when we try to be uniform, we can't be unified because we can't actually, the forearm has to be different from the upper arm in order for the entire arm to work. The hand's got to be different from the forearm. So I am seeing, I believe, the church beginning to recognize that it is our distinctiveness and our distinctions that make us helpful and useful to each other as the body of Christ. So I think we're moving away from a model, a melting pot model, or a model of sameness or homogeneous church culture, and saying it's actually the differences that we have that make us useful and helpful to one another.
I'm hearing distinctness. I'm also hearing God celebrated the distinctiveness. I'm hearing that it was intentional, and now what I'm hearing that it's also purposeful. Yeah. Okay. Good.
You know, I was thinking in Genesis when God says, "Go and populate the earth," yes. Right? In order to do that, human beings had to develop and adapt different distinctive skin tones, hair textures, heights, variation, in order to actually fulfill the command of God to go. And so our distinctiveness, even the superficial distinctiveness of skin, hair, all that, is useful, and it's part of God's plan, and it was part of what God designed us to do and be. And so when we look at our uniqueness and we look at ourselves and we look at each other, what we're seeing is the purpose of God, right? We're seeing the purpose, so we should celebrate that. We should celebrate our light skin or dark skin or straight hair or curly hair or our features, our full lips or thin lips or whatever. We should celebrate the ways that we are, because that's part of the plan of God when He sent us into the earth to populate it.
And yet sometimes we fail at that. We're not perfect at it, and so the church, I think, is a body, a unit in motion, maturing, continually growing. I just think that we struggle with it because of our fallenness. And so while this truth that is being laid out of what the Word says is absolutely true, we still have to pray our way through it and separate ourselves from this cultural distinction and these cultural mores that tend to influence us to be more like the world versus more like what Christ demands of the church. And so we still have a model in front of us, but it's sometimes difficult to perfect.
And to add to all of this beautiful dialogue, when I think about what God was trying to do, there's a need to recognize that the differences are important and essential, but for what? The what is worship. And I know I keep coming back to worship. And very practically speaking, the Lord has blessed me to be in many types of gatherings, ecumenical, international. The Lord is after, I believe, a lot of things, but two things that stand out to me is the fragrance that comes from a unified people, a people who have one purpose, to worship and come together to do that. So there's a fragrance that comes out of that is sweet in his nostrils. And the other thing that comes out is a sound. There is a distinct sound that comes from worship when multifaceted people come together. It sounds like no other. It is authentic. It is a blend of a sound that we've never heard before. And the closest I've ever heard it being recorded was a choir that is filled with different people groups, like a Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir or something like that, where the sound is unique and different. I believe the Lord wants these distinctions to come together for worship. And 1 Corinthians 1:10 says, I plead with you that we would be of the same mind, the same judgment, and that there would be no divisions among us. So I think we need to always focus on what is the purpose. And if it's worship, he loves that sweet smell that comes from it. It's incense to him. And he loves the sound that comes out of it, very authentic sound.
Well, we always had this tradition in the historic Black church. What is that, Bishop, when praises go up, blessings come down? So there's actually a pragmatic side to the worship.
I thought she was describing the African American choir anyway. A little selfish, but
I mean, I love it all. I love it all. When I'm in one environment, I've learned to enjoy that expression. When I'm in a different environment, I love that. But when I'm at home, that speaks to me, to my person, to my soul. But I've learned to appreciate all the different styles of worship. Now, if we could just bring it all together and create a new sound, that would be something.
I think there's a growing understanding of our distinctiveness that we celebrate, that because our world is more interconnected now than it used to be, we are able to better appreciate how deeply we need one another. When we didn't know that maybe 200-300 years ago, quite like we do now. Societies, I think, felt like they were more self-sustaining, self-sufficient. But being exposed to beauty that comes from all over the world, and gifts and talents that come from all over the world, and unique cultural expressions from all over the world, we're able to see something in the other that I did not know I needed until I see it in you. But after I see it in you, I see how deeply I need you. And I think at this cultural moment, when our world is heaving in lots of ways, what we have as the church to offer the world is that we celebrate needing one another rather than celebrating independence from one another. What we can celebrate in the church is that in the church, the Apostle Paul says, old hostilities are laid aside. And instead, the beauty of being drawn together and make that sound. We didn't know we needed each other quite like we do until we saw each other like we can now.
Yeah, I'm going to answer that in a little bit more practical sense, where every church, I think, has to figure out how to have context where everyone who's different comes together to worship, to have that beautiful worship where those different voices are being heard together, but also to have safe spaces where you do have different groups of people sequestering away so that they can be firmer in their identity and in their distinction. In particular for minorities, to have spaces, whether that be racial minorities, but also gender, people who might be marginalized. Sometimes people are threatened, or even church leaders are threatened when people are requesting, hey, can we start a small group, or can we have a gathering of just us folks so that we can fellowship together and solidify and answer some of the questions that we need to answer so that we can come back together with the whole group. So there's no formula for every community to, this is how much you do that, this is how much you do this. Every community has to sort through that a little bit together. But I have been in circumstances where leadership, church leadership, is sometimes threatened or sometimes feels like, hey, that's going against our desire for unity by you guys sort of going away. But we affirm men's groups and women's groups. We recognize that doesn't threaten unity in the church. So why would we be threatened if some of the minorities go away to talk about the distinct things that we struggle with or have to work through in our faith, that we can come back and enrich the rest of the group when we fellowship together. So that's I think, something that church leaders need to be aware of and allow for that kind of thing to happen.
Thank you for joining us for our Unity Lou panel discussion. We greatly appreciate you engaging with this difficult conversation about race. This is just one part of our Unity in the Lou event. Our event is a worship and prayer event happening on July 10th at Friendly Temple at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We really hope you would enjoy us for this Revelation 7-9 type of gathering where all races, ethnicities, all people groups are coming together and worship our King. We want you to participate and be there. It's a free event, so we hope you would join. Also, if you need to know more event information about the St. Louis Reconciliation Network, please go to our website. It's www.stlrn.org. You can find out about more of the events that we do, the classes, and the training that we have available. Thank you, and God bless.